Well, in this final video, I want to talk to you about actually delivering the speech, delivering the business. What are some things to do in that delivery? I mean, you've put together your opening, you've got that outline put together, you've got all that stuff fleshed out on it now. You've put the meat on the bones, you've fleshed it out. It's just really nice. You've concluded it well. You've dealt with the nervousness and the fear, looking at some of the things I told you. And now it's actually time to think about how to deliver a speech with efficiency and with effectiveness. And number one thing you have to keep in mind is, again, what I've said earlier. Just don't take yourself so seriously. Take the opportunity seriously, but don't take yourself seriously. Because people aren't so much there focused on you. They're focused on the information. They're focused on why they're there, why they were required to be there, or why they chose to pay to be there. So they're not so much focused on you as much as they're focused on what they'll get from being there. So they're focused on themselves. So keep that in mind. So they're more concerned about themselves than they are you. So that's one thing to keep in mind. If you goof up, like you've noticed on these videos, I've kind of tripped over my words a little bit. I have no script here. I'm doing this right off the top of my head. I have no notes. I just write this one word up here, and it reminds me of everything that I know. I've taught it so long that it's all just second nature to me. So I'm just rambling here. I'm just sort of talking, and this is what you would get if you saw me in a live event. This is the way I would be doing it. And I can't worry about how my hair looks, and I can't worry about if I trip over a word. If I do, I just keep going, because it's natural conversation. So I don't worry about those kind of things. I don't take myself very seriously, but I do take the event very seriously, and I take the opportunity very seriously, and that's what you need to do. So when you start speaking, one of the most important things to do is maintain really good eye contact. Now on a video, it's kind of hard for me to do this because I've got to keep looking at the camera that's here in front of me. But if you were to imagine me looking around this room, I would turn this way at some point, and I would gesture toward these people. I would come more toward the middle, and I would gesture over this way, and I would look at people. Now, you don't want to look directly at one person and zoom in on them. You don't want to do that, but you want to tend to kind of look over the heads of people as you're looking in their general direction, and you want to keep your movement, this way, to where you are looking at people rather than looking down at a podium looking at notes, and too much on a PowerPoint presentation, or too much on the board that may be behind you. You may want to gesture toward it, but you want to keep on looking at people. And if you lock in on one person, make sure that you only do that no more than a second or two, so you will not convey to them a note of intimidation or that you're picking on them or something like that. But you do have to maintain good eye contact, and the reason you want to do that is because it helps people feel included. If you're looking at them, they feel that they're a part of the event. If you're just looking at your notes, they feel like you're not interested in them and that you're not prepared. So you want to make sure that you don't depend on your notes. You just look at the people out there and just sort of look over them in passing, sort of like this, and make sure that you're engaging them. So eye contact is very important. Secondly is gestures, using body language. You know as well as I do, you remember this from high school speech class, that about 80% of all of our communication is nonverbal. That means that if we gesture a certain way without saying a word, people can understand that that's a gesture of intensity or concern. If we pat ourselves like that, this is a gesture of intensity or anger or concern. Or if we just sort of roll a hand like this, this is sort of, I'm just sort of conveying some information. This is good information, but not the end of the world stuff, And then gesturing this way, or that way. Whatever you want to think about the way that your body speaks. What would this gesture say to someone? Or this gesture, or this one. The body communicates. So you want to think through your gestures as you are preparing it. There are certain times that when you're trying to get buy-in on a very important principle, you've gotten down to your solutions, your suggestions, and you can really just clench your fists like this, and you can intensify your face, and you can say, this is something I put a lot of thought into, guys, and listen, the company is got a great future, but we've really got to grasp the seriousness of this particular solution, this particular approach to solving the problem. I mean, just that gesture alone conveys strength and passion and power and emphasis and force. And so pick your gestures well. Make sure that your gestures are appropriate. And make sure that you be careful at gesturing toward a particular person, again, because of that intimidation factor. So eye contact, gesture, movement, moving around. How appropriate will it be to move around? I talk about this in the book, but movement is very powerful. I don't stand statuesque behind a podium. Now, I have to stay in camera shot here, but if I were giving this speech in a live setting, I would be moving around a lot more. I'd move over to that side of the room, then I'd move over to that side. I might even go out into the crowd. That's just the way that I do it, because it gives this idea of connection to the people. If I move around, it shows that I'm not dependent on my notes. I'm speaking from authority and from being an expert and knowing what I'm talking about, so I'm not dependent on a bunch of notes that I just gathered together yesterday. This is something that's a part of me, and so I can walk around and I can talk about it, and what that does, that garners me much more respect from those that are listening. Now, some people are intimidated by a moving speaker. I always say, well, that's their problem. I have to move, and I connect a lot better with a speaker that moves around a lot more. Lastly, let me just talk about the way you use your voice. Your voice, articulation, and pronunciation, and inflection. Those are three very important things. Pronunciation, articulation, and inflection. Three very powerful things that we want to keep in mind. Now, pronunciation is we want to make sure that we pronounce our words correctly. We want to make sure that if we say a word, that we say it the way that it's supposed to be pronounced. Some people literally say, when they're talking about the Mexican dip chip tortilla, they'll call it tortilla. And when you mispronounce a word, it causes people to think that you are uneducated. It really does. One mispronounced word can affect everything that you're trying to do. So make sure that if you are going to be using a word that you're not familiar with in your particular speech, make sure you look it up and know how to pronounce it, because you will lose a lot of credibility if you don't say it right. So pronunciation, articulation, this has to do with the way that we use our voice. It's connected to pronunciation to some degree, but it has a lot to do with our accent. If you have a strong southern drawl, if you're down in the South and most of the people sitting out there in a crowd are got the same kind of vocal articulation that you do, and they all talk like this, well, that's okay. But if you talk like that and you're moving out to the Midwest and you're going to be speaking for a group out there, I would recommend that you not change your articulation, but that you modify it to make sure that you don't lose the opportunity to connect with people because they can't get past your articulation, your accent, whether it's a northern accent or a southern accent. I mean, I hear people from way up in the north. I'm from the South, and I used to talk like this because I was raised in Middle Tennessee. But I intentionally changed. You still know that I'm from the South, but my articulation and my accent has changed dramatically, simply because I knew the value of connecting with audiences. And I've heard some people up north who their strong northern accent is so strong that they don't take that in consideration when they come to the South. And a lot of people in the South are like, he's just a Yankee who don't care nothing about me. Anyway, you might be sitting there shrugging your shoulders saying, this is no big deal. But trust me, it's a lot bigger deal than you think about. Pronunciation, articulation, and then inflection. There are certain words, certain parts of words that need to be inflected more than others. And let me tell you why. Zig Ziglar gave this analogy years ago. He said, inflection is so strong because the inflection literally changes the meaning of a sentence. And he said, here's the sentence that he used: I did not say that Joe beat his wife. Now, if I just say that, I did not say that Joe beat his wife, it's just a statement of fact. I just didn't say it. But if I say, I didn't say that Joe beat his wife, now that's a statement of absolute denial, isn't it? It's the inflection has changed, and so therefore the meaning has changed. Now, if I say it like this, I didn't say that Joe beat his wife, now it has a totally different meaning, doesn't it? Now I'm implying it. I didn't really say it. I just sort of implied it. Well, what if I said it like this? I didn't say that Joe beat his wife. Oh, no, it wasn't Joe at all. It was Bill that beat his wife. You misunderstood me. I didn't say that Joe beat his wife. No, you misunderstood. He might have smacked her around, but he didn't really beat her. I didn't say that Joe beat his wife. No, it was his neighbor's wife that he knocked around. Oh, I didn't say that Joe beat his wife. No, it was his sister that he was knocking around. You see, inflection changes meaning. So if you're trying to emphasize a certain point, you want to make sure that your inflection matches the meaning. Now, again, learn these principles, apply them, practice them. This is a crash course. There's so much more theory out there I can give you, but you bought a Kindle book on a crash course, and I trust that this information has been very helpful to you. Thank you for buying it. It's just a small little purchase that I trust will make a huge difference in your life. And if I can help you in any way, contact me. I'd love to hear from you and correspond with you by email. And who knows, by email we might exchange phone numbers and actually exchange a phone call together. I'd be happy to help you any possible way that I can. Again, thank you for buying the book, and thank you for trying to be the best you can be in being a public speaker or business presenter or whatever it may be. Thank you for trying. Thank you for doing your best. Thank you for giving it your all. And thank you for just being the person that you are. This is Tony Guthrie. It's been an honor sharing these thoughts with you.